Continue with histology of epithelium. So simple epithelium is nothing but one of the classification of epithelium. So the simple epithelium is nothing but having a single layer, then compound epithelium is multi-layered. So simple epithelium may be simple squamous, cuboidal or simple columnar. So simple squamous is, so what is simple epithelium is the cells directly attached to the basement membrane. So only single layer of cells. So here the breadth of the cell is more than the length of the cell in the case of simple squamous epithelium, and the nucleus is flat and the function is, so we see the simple squamous epithelium mainly in exchange type of cells, and the location is mnemonic 3BA, that is Bowman's capsule, blood vessel, body cavity and alveoli. In the simple cuboidal epithelium, here the breadth of the cell is equal to the length of the nucleus, and mainly the nucleus is round in shape and the function is secretion. So the location mnemonic is stalk, like thyroid follicle, germinal epithelium of ovary and kidney tubules. And next we are having our simple columnar epithelium. Here the length of the cell is greater than the breadth of the cell, so the nucleus is elongated and the function also here mainly secretion. So the location is stomach and large intestine. So simple columnar along with the microvilli is, microvilli form the brush border, so they increase the surface area, and the location is mainly gallbladder and the small intestine. So next, coming to the ciliated columnar epithelium, here the cilia are motile structures we know, and the location is mainly fallopian tube and eustachian tube. Next, coming to the pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium, here the ciliated columnar epithelium is single layered but appears like arranged as multi layers. So all cells are directly attached to the basement membrane. Location is mainly trachea and bronchus, and the compound epithelium, that is stratified squamous epithelium, the apical layer is squamous and the function is like a barrier, and it may be keratinized or non-keratinized. So the location of non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium is oral cavity, tonsils, esophagus, tongue, vocal cord and also vagina. And the location of keratinized stratified squamous epithelium is thick skin, anal verge of an anal canal. And the parakeratinized stratified squamous epithelium, the surface layer is having nuclei and it is present mainly in the hard palate, and the hard palate is lined by parakeratinized and with the submucosal glands. This is important. So remember, submucosal glands are present in hard palate. And the stratified cuboidal epithelium, the apical layer is mainly cuboidal and the location is ducts of exocrine glands and also sweat glands. Next, coming to the stratified columnar epithelium, here the apical layer is columnar and the membranous and penile urethra are mainly lined by stratified columnar epithelium and also pseudostratified columnar epithelium, but the stratified columnar epithelium can be the best answer. And transitional epithelium, also known as urothelium, here the epithelium mainly transitions from one shape to the other, and it is mainly seen in our urinary system. So the apical most layer has umbrella shaped cells and the location is from the tip of the collecting duct up to the prostate urethra. So the tip of the collecting duct it arises from. And the major and minor calyces, pyramids, renal pelvis, ureter, bladder, prostatic urethra, so all these are mainly lined by urothelium. Next, coming to the lining of female reproductive system is mainly the fallopian tube, ciliated columnar epithelium, uterus, simple columnar is greater than ciliated columnar, and the major portion is mainly lined by the simple columnar in the case of uterus. And next, coming to the ciliated columnar epithelium in the portion close to the fallopian tube, and cervix upper part is by simple columnar and the lower part by the stratified squamous non-keratinized, same as vagina, and vagina also stratified squamous non-keratinized, and fallopian tube by ciliated columnar, vagina non-keratinized, stratified squamous, and the uterus simple columnar is greater than ciliated columnar, cervix simple columnar is greater than non-keratinized stratified squamous. So the lining of nephron, the Bowman's capsule, that is simple squamous epithelium, proximal PCT, convoluted tubule is nothing but simple cuboidal epithelium with along with the microvilli. Distal convoluted tubule is lined by simple cuboidal epithelium, Henle's loop or ansa nephroni by simple squamous and simple cuboidal epithelium. So the thick part of descending limb of Henle's loop by simple cuboidal epithelium along with the microvilli, thick part of ascending limb of Henle's loop by simple cuboidal, and the thin part of Henle's loop by simple squamous along with the microvilli. and the collecting duct by simple cuboidal or also by simple columnar. Star-shaped lumen may be seen in some ureter or vas difference, but in ureter there is star-shaped lumen along with the transitional epithelium, then it is confirmed as ureter. So this is all about revision series of histology of epithelium. Now let us start our histology of glands revision section. So here first we know glands are mainly divided into endocrine and exocrine glands. So first we have our how the glands are formed. The formation of glands is mainly by nothing but the epithelium, which is having the secretory function which invaginates the connective tissue, is nothing but the gland. So the invaginating portion of epithelium actually having two parts, that is a gland, that is the secretory part, and a duct, that is a conducting part. So now let us see deeper of exocrine glands. So exocrine glands have both secretory and also conducting parts, but the secretions of the exocrine glands are by enzymes, and the exocrine glands may be unicellular like goblet cells, and also they can be multicellular. So in multicellulars we are having different types of our exocrine gland, different types like simple. If there is simple tubular, then it is intestinal gland. If it is simple coiled tubular, then it is merocrine sweat gland. Simple branch tubular, gastric mucosa, esophagus, tongue, duodenum, and the simple alveolar will be sebaceous. And the compound alveolar is mammary, compound tubulo-alveolar is salivary, pancreas, and also we having compound tubular, that is mucous gland, bulbourethral, and also testes. So these are the multicellular glands of a goblet cell. So the exocrine glands may also be classified as simple glands and compound glands, as we have seen many examples over here about a compound gland. So now let us talk about endocrine gland. So we can say exocrine gland is having ducts, but the endocrine doesn't have ducts, so it is ductless glands. So it is also known as ductless glands. These glands only have a secretory part, because exocrine glands have a duct because they need to secrete it to the epithelium surface, but the endocrine glands, they directly secrete to the blood. So you can remember that endocrine glands are highly vascular because they need to supply their products to the directly into blood. So these glands only have a secretory part. The duct disappears after the invagination, and the secretions are directly released into the blood. Thus endocrine glands are highly vascularized. So the secretions of endocrine glands are mainly hormones, but the secretions of exocrine glands are mainly enzymes. So now let us check out about goblet cells. So the goblet cells are mainly unicellular exocrine glands, as we have seen. So they release the secretions by means of mainly exocytosis process. So these secrete mainly mucus stains poorly with HND, that is hematocycline and eosin, so hence appear pale. And simple glands, so these goblet cells, as you know, these goblet cells are also exocrine. We know they are simple glands and compound glands. So simple gland secretions are poured directly by a single duct, and the compound glands, a group of cells, each draining into a duct, which drains again into a larger duct. So in compound glands, a group of cells is draining into a duct, which in turn drain into a larger duct. So the common duct is nothing but the secretory part may be tubular, echiner, or also alveolar. So we are having mainly three types of glands: serous glands, mixed glands, and mucous glands. So serous glands, the secretions are water-like, and the cells are having pyramidal shape, and the nucleus is round in shape, and the lumen is very small, and the apical eosinophilia, that is eosinophilic appearance, due to numerous secretions that collect at the apex. So mixed glands are actually having both serous and mucous acini. And the mucous glands, where the secretions are thick and they are mucus-like, and the cells may be columnar, cuboidal, and the nucleus is flat and mainly pushed to the base by the thick mucus. So the lumen is large and the glands appear pale on HND staining. So serous demilume is also known as crescent of Giannuzzi. So it's mainly present in our mixed glands, that is mucous acini are mainly capped with the serous acini. As you know, it's mixed gland, right? So it contains both serous and mucous acini. So they decrease the thickness of the secretions. And the classification of glands is mainly based on the mode of secretion. So as we know, merocrine gland, the cells are intact, and the location is mainly the majority of sweat glands, and the exocrine glands are merocrine. So intact cells are releasing secretions mainly by exocytosis. And next going to apocrine gland. So the cells are here not intact, and the secretions are collected in the apical part, and the apical part is pinched off. So the location is mainly, you can remember like MAP, mnemonic, that is mammary gland, atypical sweat gland in the axilla, and also in the pubis. And next comes apocrine gland is nothing but the pinched off apical portion of the cell. So what is holocrine gland? The whole cell is disintegrated and releases the secretion. So these are several layers of the cells which are present mainly in the holocrine glands. So the basal layer is mitotic in nature and replaces the disintegrated cells. So here the location is sebaceous glands. So this is an important question. So this is all about revision of histology glands. Now today let's start histology of connective tissue. So we know connective tissue mainly gives support and it connects different types of tissue. So connective tissue is divided into two types, that is generalized connective tissue and specialized connective tissue. So actually connective tissue first contains cells and matrix. The matrix contains the ground substance and fibers. So example, if we take a cartilage, in the cartilage the cells are chondrocyte, and in matrix we find ground substance and the fibers may be collagen or elastic fibers. So that if fibers are elastic, then elastic cartilage, and like that. So long wavy fibers which are found in the bundles and they are anastomosing with each other, these are known as collagen fibers. So if the collagen fibers having a appearance white, they appear white if we see with our naked eye. And on eosin and hematoxylin, if we look at our connective tissue, they look light pink. And on Madsen's trichome, they look blue in color. And on Van Jansen stain, they look pink. And with silver impregnation, they are brown in color. So the types of the connective tissue are four types mainly. That is, the type 1 is mainly present in ligaments, fascia, tendon, aponeurosis, dermis, and white fibrous cartilage. And the type 2 is mainly present in hyaline and elastic cartilage. Type 3 is present in reticular fibers, lymphoid organs. And remember, in lymphoid organ it is not present in the thymus. And type 4 are sheet-like and they are present in lens capsule and also in the basement membrane. So the reticular fibers, we know they are type 3, they are short and they are not wavy. But if you remember, collagen fibers are wavy and they are thin and they branch anastomose to form the reticulum, that is the network. So with the silver impregnation, the reticular fibers appear black in color, but the collagen fibers appear brown in color. So the elastic fibers, now let us see about the elastic fibers. These are not in bundles, they are single, thin and non-wavy. And the thicker one is ligamentum flavum. And the special stains used here are Verhoef stain, oracin with aldehyde fusion. And next, let's see the cells in the connective tissue. There are two types, make intrinsic components of the connective tissue and immune system cells. So the intrinsic component of the connective tissue is mainly formed by fibroblasts and adipose tissue, and the immune system cells of the connective tissue are lymphocyte and macrophage. So next, see fibroblasts. So fibroblasts synthesize the extracellular matrix and also collagen and the structural framework, that is the stroma for animal tissue, and also play a critical role in a wound healing. So they are the most common cells of a connective tissue. So they are usually spindle shaped with a flat nucleus and they are fixed and immobile, which are close to the collagen fiber. So the fibrocyte is an inactive fibroblast, but fibroblast is an active form of fibrocyte. So now let us see the adipose tissue. As the name we know, it is nothing but the aggregation of fat cells stained with the silane and benzene which dissolve the fat. So we see empty spaces in a histological picture. So there are mainly two types, that is yellow type and brown type. Yellow type is unilocular and it is peripherally placed, it is having peripherally placed nucleus, and the brown one is found in the newborn, that is having a multilocular and contain the aggregation of small fat dropules. So type 4 and 3 of special stain is Sudan stain we use for the lipids. And the classification based on the arrangement of fibers is dense regular connective tissue seen in ALT, that is mnemonic, A for aponeurosis, L for ligaments, and T for tendons. And our dense irregular connective tissue is seen in dermis of skin and also in a organ capsule, that is periosteum. Histology of cartilage. So the cartilage contains cells known as chondrocyte and it contains a matrix which has ground substance and also fibers. The fibers may be collagen or elastic. Now let us see the hyaline cartilage. So in hyaline cartilage the cells are arranged in groups like known as isogenous groups of cells, and the matrix is shiny and glossy, and the refractory index of the ground substance and the collagen type 2, and the perichondrium is present. So examples are, you can remember, like RICA, that is respiratory cartilage, embryonic cartilage, and epiphyseal cartilage, costal cartilage, articular cartilage. And elastic cartilage, the cells are also here arranged in groups and they are having elastic fibers and they are mainly having collagen type 2. Perichondrium is present. Example is triple E, that is epiglottis, eustachian tube, ear lobule, apex of arytenoid, corniculate and cuneiform. And the white fiber, also known as fibrocartilage, in this the cells are arranged in rows and the bundles of collagen type 1 are present and the perichondrium is absent. Example you can remember like Maggie. So M is meniscus, A is articular cartilage, G is glenoid labrum and I is intervertebral disc. So the complete revision of histology of cartilage. Continue our series of revision of histology of muscle. So the muscle is made up of myocytes, which are nothing but the cells of the muscle. So the myocytes, when they are like arranged in the form of elongated structures, then they are known as muscle fibers. So it is covered by the connective tissue, which provides the pathway for the neurovascular structures. So as there is a connective tissue, there is a pathway for neurovascular structures. So we know muscle tissue like skeletal muscle, smooth muscle, cardiac muscle. So the skeletal muscle in which the mainly present in our limb trunk, and in skeletal muscle striations are present and it's a voluntary muscle and innervated by somatic nerves. So the smooth muscle is hollow visceral organ and the striations are absent and it's involuntary muscle and it is innervated by autonomic nervous system. So the cardiac muscle is present in a heart and the striations are present. It is involuntary and it is also by autonomic nervous system. So both smooth muscle and cardiac muscle are involuntary and in both the nerve supply is autonomic nervous system. So skeletal muscles are long cylindrical fibers which are arranged parallelly to each other and each fiber varies in length and diameter and each fiber is a syncytium with hundreds of nuclei present and the nucleus is elongated and also found in the periphery. And the hematocylin and eosin staining, we can see striations that are alternate dark and light bands. So dark, second letter A, so A band, light I means I band. So there is a Z band, that is a dark line in an I band. H band is a light zone in an A band. And sarcomere is a myocyte between two successive Z band and endomycin is covering each muscle fiber and perimycin is covering each muscle. So muscle fiber or myofilament is innermost, it is covered by endomycin and this together, all the muscle fibers together form a fasciculus and this is covered by the perimysium and next the whole muscle is covered by a group of fasciculus form cover a whole muscle and it is covered by epimysium. So the cardiac muscle is not arranged in a parallel manner as a skeletal muscle and the fibers branch and also anastomose with each other and they don't act as syncytium because in cardiac muscle each myocyte is having its own nucleus and it is centrally placed. So remember in skeletal muscle the nucleus is peripherally placed but in cardiac muscle the nucleus is centrally placed. And eosin and hematocylin staining, we can see intercalated disc is seen between the myocytes and in smooth muscle it's a plain muscle without any striatus and it is spindle shaped cells with oval shaped nucleus. So this is all about revision of histology of muscle. Revision of histology of lymphatic system. So what are the primary lymphoid organs and secondary lymphoid organs? So the primary lymphoid organs are nothing but which are producing lymphocyte independent of the antigenic stimulus. So whenever there is no any antigenic stimulus but even though they are producing lymphocytes, then they are known as primary lymphoid organs. The examples are thymus and bone marrow. We know that from thymus T cells are formed and from bone marrow blood cells, all those are formed without any antigenic stimulus, that is without any infection or without any bacteria, only they are forming. So they are known as independent of antigenic stimulus and they are primary lymphoid organs. And the secondary lymphoid organs are the which produce the lymphocytes only in the response to an antigenic stimulus. So those are like spleen, tonsil, lymph node and malt. So all these are mainly formed in the case of infections with virus, bacteria or any other microbe entering. So all these are nothing but the secondary lymphoid organs. So here the examples are spleen, tonsil, lymph node and malt. So let us study of structure of the lymph node. So you can see this is the lymph node. These are the efferent lymph vessels through which the lymph enters and next enters into the subscapular sinus and next into cortical or radial sinus and next finally entering into the medullary sinus. So after entering into the medullary sinus it comes out by a efferent lymph vessel. So this is normal function. So you can see this is one, there are lymphatic nodules which are present in this outer cortex which are mainly aggregations of B cells and these are the trabeculus, that is outside capsule is made up of connective tissue and that capsule only inward moves and divides the lymph node, forming a trabeculus here, and this is the blood vessels, that is both artery and vein is present. So let us see function. So function is lymph is filtered before reaching the bloodstream. So that is what. And bloodstream, bacteria and particulate matter are filtered mainly in the lymph and lymph nodes. And the structure is, you can see it is a bean shaped, and the capsule is present. Lymphocytes are arranged as follicles in the cortex, that is known as lymphatic nodule. Here we see that is mainly made up of B cells. And next, there are numerous efferent lymphatics after the convex surface. And one more thing, remember that in cortex it is present as lymphatic nodule, and in medulla it is present as cords, that is T cells cords are present in the medulla. And the numerous efferent lymphatics enter the convex surface, as I already discussed. And next is the single efferent lymphatic vessel is in concave surface. Only single, we have only one input, that is one efferent lymphatic vessel. Only one efferent. We are having many efferent, that is many efferent lymphatic vessels through which a lymph can enter into the lymph node, but only one efferent lymph vessel through which the lymph exits from the lymph node. So only one efferent lymphatic vessel is present in the concave surface, but that is efferent lymphatics are present in the convex surface. And the lymph enters via the efferent vessels next into subscapular sinus, and numerous cortical radius sinus pass through the lymph node and reach the medulla and form the medullary sinus and exit via efferent vessel, as we discussed. So in cortex, the lymphatic nodule is having pale germinal center, and it is thick at periphery. So in cortex, I said that there are lymphatic nodules. So in the middle it is pale, and outer it is thicker in the periphery. And in the medulla they are arranged as cords that anastomose with each other. So now we have completed the lymph node. Now let us see about spleen. So spleen is nothing but they are having numerous trabecular septa from the capsule and enter the substance of the spleen and divide the spleen. So the splenic artery enters into the trabeculae, and next it converts into trabecular arteries and its branches, and the arteriole enters into the intertrabecular space. And next comes the white pulp. So the white pulp is nothing but white pulp is a lymphatic nodule, and it is eccentrically placed arteriole. It is lymphatic nodule. Again, lymphatic nodule is made up of B cells, and it is also having a peri-arteriolar lymphatic sheath. And red pulp have straight branches, that is pencillar arteries, and it is surrounded by ellipsoid, and this is distal to the ellipsoid, and distal to the ellipsoid we have a pencillar artery which dilate, it is called as ampulla, and infiltrate the splenic tissue. So the ellipsoid is mainly made up of fibroblasts and the macrophages. And the red pulp is made up of sinusoids and splenic cords of Billroth. And sinusoids have special endothelium, that is banana shaped endothelium known as stave cells. And the splenic cords of Billroth contain the reticular fibers of type 3 collagen, fibroblasts, and also macrophages are present. So thymus capsule is present. Lymphocytes are arranged as lobules, and each lobules contains both cortex and medulla. And Hessel's corpuscles are present, which are mainly degenerated cells found in the medulla. And this Hessel's corpuscles are eosinophilic mass, and they are concentric, and the cortex is having numerous lymphocytes and few epithelio-reticular cells, and the medulla only have few lymphocytes and more epithelio-reticular cells. So the concentrically arranged eosinophilic mass function is still unknown. That is about our Hessel's corpuscles. So what is tonsil? Tonsil only lymphoid organ with the epithelial lining, and it is having stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium, and there are numerous crypts present mainly on the medial side, and the lymphocytes are arranged as lymphatic nodules. So note where we have found the lymphatic nodules, which are mainly seen. Lymphatic nodules are also known as lymphatic follicles, which is mainly made up of B cells. These are found mainly in our lymph node, if you remember, in the outer cortex of lymph node. In the spleen we find it in a white pulp, and next in tonsils. So our thymus doesn't have our lymph nodes or lymph follicles. So by this we complete the histology revision of lymphatic system. If you want to check out the full lesson, you can also check out in my channel. Revision of histology of respiratory system. So whenever we see in microscopically lungs, we see the tracheobronchial tree mainly. So first left main bronchus divides into secondary, next tertiary, and into terminal bronchus, and next into bronchioles, from there into alveolus. So you can see terminal bronchiole into respiratory bronchioles, next alveolar sac, and alveolar duct. So the trachea and bronchus have same histological features. So the features of trachea and bronchus are the layer. So the layers, the mucosa is the innermost and submucosa, and we have the cartilage layer. So first layer is the mucosa is innermost, next submucosa, and next cartilage to the outer surface. And the mucosa is mainly lined by the pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium, same like our trachea. And we can see the globulate cells, Clara cells are present, which mainly produce the surfactants like the type 2 pneumocyte. And the basal cells are mitotic in nature, and the brush cells and Kluchkis cells are present, which are neuroendocrine cells. And next, coming to the submucosa. So that is the next layer, that is the middle layer. It contains the submucosal glands. And next, outermost layer, the cartilage. It's mainly having the hyaline cartilage, same like our trachea. And the chondrocytes are present in the form of groups. And the bronchioles. So this is this mucosa, submucosa, cartilage. All this is about trachea. Now let us say about our bronchiole. So the bronchus and trachea are same, but the bronchioles is having some difference. That is, the epithelium is simple columnar to ciliated. So epithelium is changing from simple columnar to the ciliated columnar epithelium, and the goblet cells are absent in the case of bronchioles, but in our bronchus and trachea the goblet cells are present, and the submucosal glands are also absent, and the cartilage is replaced by the smooth muscle. But whereas in trachea and bronchus we have a cartilage, that is hyaline cartilage, and the respiratory and terminal bronchioles are mainly lined by the simple cuboidal epithelium, and the alveoli is lined by the simple squamous. So first the epithelium is columnar, next is changing into cuboidal in terminal and respiratory bronchioles, and in alveoli it is changing into squamous. And the alveoli is having type 1 and type 2 pneumocytes. Type 1 pneumocytes occupy about 95%, and they are useful for the gaseous exchange, and they are having squamous cells. Type 2 pneumocytes occupy 5%, and the surfactant is produced, and they are having large and round cuboidal cells. So this is all about the revision series of our histology of respiratory system. To the histology of endocrine revision series. So here we have first the pituitary gland. We know pituitary gland is divided in two types, that is adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis. So neurohypophysis is also known as posterior pituitary, and adenohypophysis is also known as anterior pituitary. Now let us see in detail about adenohypophysis, that is anterior pituitary. So the cells are arranged in the form of cords and are separated by sinusoids. And next the pars distalis, it is also known as pars distalis, right? So it is having various types of cells, mainly for secreting the each hormone, right? Because anterior pituitary only produces many types of hormones. Neurohypophysis is pars nervosa only produce two hormones, that is we know oxytocin and vasopressin or ADH. So let us say about anterior, because it produces many hormones, let us discuss. So it is forming mainly two types of cells. According to staining, you can see chromophil cells and the chromophobe cells. So chromophil cells are brightly stained granules they have, and the chromophil cells are further divided into acidophilic cells and basophilic cells. So acidophilic, as a name you can say, because it stains the acid, and the basophil stains with the basic dye. So acidophilic cells, in that we have like growth hormones only, both you can remember, like acidophilic growth, because somatotropes, which is secreting the growth hormone, and memmotrope is also useful in growth and also mainly secretes the prolactin. So somatotropes, memotropes are also under acidophilic, and they stain with acid dye, and the basophilic is stained with the basic dye, and they are thyrotropes, corticotropes and gonadotropes. So these are the examples of basophils. Now let us see the chromophobe cells. So chromophobe cells are that their granules are not prominent and have the cells similar to all this, that is somatotropes, memotropes, thyrotropes, corticotropes and gonadotropes. So by this we complete about pars anterior. Now let us see pars intermedia. So pars intermedia is nothing but it is between the pars anterior and the pars posterior. So pars intermedia is actually poorly developed, and the remnants of only Redke's pouch are present, and their vesicles are filled with the colloid, and they mainly secrete the MSH. What is this MSH? That is melanocyte stimulating hormone. And next, going to the neurohypophysis or pars nervosa. This is posterior pituitary. It is mainly unmyelinated, containing unmyelinated axons coming from neurons in the hypothalamus, because hypothalamus neurons are continuous with their posterior pituitary, right? So they are unmyelinated axons, and the nucleus mainly are supraoptic and paraventricular. We know that the supraoptic nucleus produce vasopressin or ADH, and the paraventricular form the oxytocin. So these two hormones are the main hormones of a neurohypophysis, and they also contain some supporting cells for axons. Those are nothing but our pituitary. Now let us say about the thyroid gland. So we complete our pituitary gland. Next we go into thyroid gland. So thyroid gland is mainly covered by a capsule, that capsule itself form a septum and arise from the capsule, right, and divide the gland into the lobules. So each lobule contains aggregation of follicles. Thyroid follicles, middle pink colloid, right, that structure. So aggregation of follicles is nothing but forming a lobule. So follicular cells are nothing but lining the follicle, right? Those are the follicular cells. So these are normal. In normal they are cuboidal, but when they are low active they will be squamous type, and when they are highly active they are columnar. So remember, when normal cuboidal, when very low active then squamous, or inactive you can say squamous, and very high active then they are columnar in shape. So what is electron microscopy of follicular cell? Whenever we see in electron microscopy, we see a apical microvilli. They are having microvilli in apical part, and there are numerous rough endoplasmic reticulum found, and also supranuclear Golgi complex is present. So what are C cells or parafollicular cells? Actually these are the cells which are also known as clear cells or light cells. They are polyhedral cells mainly found between the follicles. So they are like scattered type. They are present in between the follicular cells. So they secrete mainly thyrocalcitonin. Next, let us see about the parathyroid gland. So the parathyroid gland are usually 4 in number, that is 2 superior and 2 inferior, and they are covered by a capsule, and the cells are arranged in the form of cords, and they are also separated by sinusoids. Sinusoids are nothing but the gaps in between them. And the chief cells. So actually parathyroid have two types of cells, that is the chief cells and oxyphilic cells. So according to their name only we can understand it. Chief means like somewhat important, so principal cells. And one more thing, chief cells are small but they are numerous because they are chief, right? So they are numerous and they secrete the parathormone. And the oxyphilic cells are eosinophilic cells, and they are larger in size but very few in number, and their function is still unknown. So next let us see the adrenal gland. Adrenal gland is upon our kidneys, as the name adrenal. It is having cortex and medulla, right? The cortex is the important part because the cortex layers are useful in production of many different hormones. So the cortex is mainly covered by a capsule, and the cortex is 10 times thicker of the medulla. And even in cortex, remember that the fasciculator layer, that is the second layer, is the most biggest one. So first layer is the zona glomerulosa. It is the outer 1/5, and it is having the inverted U-shaped cells or also umbrella shaped cells, and they are small polyhedral cells with a basophilic, that is blue staining cytoplasm, and they secrete the mineralocorticoids and also aldosterone. And next fasciculator is the second layer. It is 2 cell thick and having straight column like cells, and it secretes glucocorticoids and also androgen is secreted by a fascicularis. And next comes a reticularis. Reticularis is the inner 1/5, and it also contains cords, and cells are like cords, and they have branch anastomosis, so hence the name reticulum for this layer. And same as fasciculata, the cells are same as fasciculata, but they contain fewer lipid contents when compared with it, and also they contain a brown pigment in it, and they secrete some glucocorticoids and also sex hormones. And next coming to the medulla. So medulla is structurally, embryologically and functionally different from the cortex cells. Why? Because they contain the cells of mainly postganglionic sympathetic neurons, which secrete both adrenaline and also non-adrenaline, and they have a chromophilic reaction. So what is this reaction? For example, if we fix the cells of this adrenal medulla into the solution of chromium salts, especially example you can take potassium dichromate. So whenever we put this medulla in this, we see that the cytoplasm is having some yellow granules. So that yellow granules is nothing but the chromaffin granules. So we can observe the chromaffin granules in a medulla. Next, let us see the APUD cells. They are nothing but the scattered endocrine cells, means they are scattered all over the body, and they show the chromaffin reaction positive. Remember that all APUD cells are chromaffin reaction positive, and they take the amine precursors and they process by a decarboxylation, that is forming peptides, and in turn peptide forms the hormones. Actually they take amine precursors from the circulation. And next examples of this APUD cells are cells in adenohypophysis, neurons in hypothalamus, C cells of thyroids are also known as parafollicular cells, and chief cells of the parathyroid, and also adrenal medullary cells, glomus cells in carotid body, and melanocyte cells, some cells in the pineal gland, and also renin producing cells in kidney. So by this we complete our endocrine histology revision important points. Have some important points in our endocrine system. That is nothing but the cell producing the prolactin from the pituitary are mainly stained by a eosin. And next, the radio-opaque subjects which are seen in the pineal gland are mainly known as corpora iranica, and it is nothing but brain sand. That is mainly composed of calcium, magnesium, and also phosphate salts. So the brain sand appear in the childhood but increase in number and size with the age. So these are the important points from our bits. So now let us start our revision series of nervous system histology. So in nervous system histology, we have the neuron is the structural and functional unit of a nervous system, right? So neuron has a cell body, right? The cell body of the neuron is mainly having a cell membrane and also cytoplasm along with the organelles. But what is the main difference between the organelles of a normal cell and a neuron? So that is nothing but having a Nissl granules which stain intensively with the basic dye. Basic dye means they appear in the blue color, means intensively blue in color in the H&E staining. And there are numerous endoplasmic reticulum. So when there is more number of endoplasmic reticulum, it indicates nothing but the high level of the protein synthesis. And next, the neurofibrils are present. These are like thread-like structures which are permeating the cytoplasm that contain the microtubules and also microfilaments. So let us see neuroids. So what are neuroids? Neuroids are actually the process which are arising from a cell body. That is nothing but dendrites and axons. Dendrites are short, which are coming in the anterior side, and axons only one. Axon will be only one, but dendrites are multiple. We know this. So dendrites are variable in thickness, but axons are uniform in thickness, and they carry impulses towards the cell body and they carry impulses away from the cell body. And dendrites are usually short and axons are long, and they contain Nissl granules and do not contain Nissl granules. Axon of hillock. Hillock is nothing but the place from where the axon is starting actually. So the Nissl free zone. As I said, axon doesn't contain Nissl. Even the axon hillock, that is the starting point of axon, also doesn't contain any Nissl. So it is known as Nissl free zone, which extends into the body. And next, myelin sheet formation. So how the myelin sheet is formed? So the oligodendrocytes help in formation in the CNS, that is central nervous system, and the Schwann cells help in formation in the peripheral nervous system. And next, let us see the process of formation. So the axon invaginates into Schwann cell and suspended by the mesoaxon, and the mesoaxon elongates and winds around the axon. So the lipids are deposited in between and the myelin sheet is thus formed. So let us see the nodes of Runway. It is nothing but the axon is mainly related to numerous Schwann cells, and each Schwann cell contribute to the myelin sheet only for a short distance, and the gap between the myelin sheet of the two such segments is known as node of Ranvier. Now let us see the histology of cerebrum. So cerebrum types of cells, first we have the pyramidal cells and also stellate cells. So first check out pyramidal cells. These are triangular in shape and having large dendrites, and they arise mainly from the apex of the pyramidal cell, and the axon arises from the base and extends throughout the thickness of the cerebrum. And let us see the stellate cells. These are smaller than pyramidal cells and they are multipolar cells. Their stellate cells appear as granules under the microscopy. So the stellate cells are nothing but also known as the granule cells, right? So motor cortex and sensory cortex. So in the motor cortex there are more pyramidal cells when compared with granule cells, and in sensory cortex there are more granule cells when compared with the pyramidal cells. Now let us see the layers of cerebrum. So first layer is a molecular layer. It contains the horizontal fibers and also scattered supporting cells of Cajal. And next, the external granular layer. It is mainly packed with the granular cells, densely packed. And next, the external pyramidal layer. It contains the small and medium sized pyramidal cells. And the internal granular layer contains the granular cells. Outer border of Bailliger Bailliger is what? It comprises the heavily myelinated horizontally running axons, and it's dominant in the visual cortex. Thus the visual cortex is also known as the striate cortex. And next, the internal pyramidal layer. It contains mainly large pyramidal cells and contains the inner band of Bailliger. And the multiform layer, all types of cells are found in this multiform, as the name multiform, right? So from which we have, already we know neuroids is nothing but the dendroids and axons, and osmium tetroxide is reduced to the black substance by an unsaturated fatty acids, and since myelin sheet contains unsaturated fatty acid, it stains black. And next, H&E staining fail to color the myelin and show the white region or the empty space around the nerve fiber. And the special stains for myelin are Luxofast blue, Sudan blue can stain but with less intensity. And next, the osmium tetroxide contains stains the myelin black. And only output from the cerebellar cortex is inhibitory form, that is the Purkinje cells to the deep cerebellar nuclei. So by this we complete histology of nervous system revision also along with the bits.
Continue our
revision of histology. So here let us start with histology of GIT. So every GIT layer is covered by mainly 4 layers, that is from inside to outside. So inside we are having mucosa, and next submucosa, and next mucosa, submucosa, and we are having muscularis mucosa, smooth muscle layer, muscularis externa, and outer we have serosa or adventitia. So now let us study each by each. So mucosa is mainly from epithelium to up to the esophagus, that includes tongue, tonsils, etc. So these are lined by stratified squamous, non-keratinized epithelium. And stomach is mainly lined by simple columnar, and small intestine is lined by simple columnar along with the microvilli. Large intestine is lined by simple columnar. And anal canal is divided by 2 lines, that is pectinate line and Hilton line. Above the pectinate line it is lined by simple columnar, and below the pectinate line by stratified squamous, and below the Hilton's line, white Hilton's line, it is covered by stratified squamous keratinized, and below the pectinate line it is lined by stratified squamous non-keratinized epithelium. So it's better to show like this. So here you can check it is lined below the Hilton line by stratified squamous keratinized epithelium, that is mainly covering our anal verge. So lamina propria mainly contains connective tissue, gastric glands, intestinal glands, and in ileum it's mainly containing lymphatic nodule segregation, that is Peyer's patches. And muscularis interna mainly contains inner circular and outer longitudinal muscle layers. So coming to the submucosa is the strongest layer in the GIT, which mainly contains connective tissue, and Meissner's plexus are present, and also contains esophageal glands, Brunner's glands, etc. Brunner's glands in case of duodenum. Now muscularis externa is having inner circular and outer longitudinal. It contains the Auerbach plexus, and in the esophagus the upper 1/3 is mainly made up of skeletal muscles. So middle 1/3 is made up of skeletal and also smooth muscle layer, and our lower 1/3 is made up of smooth muscles. Next, moving on to serosa or adventitia, the outer layer, it is covered by peritoneum, then it is known as serosal layer, and if not, then it is known as adventitial layer. Next, coming to the body of the gland. So the body of the gland mainly contains parietal cells or oxyntic cells, which mainly secrete HCl and intrinsic factors, and the fundus of the gland have peptic cells or chief cells, which secrete the pepsinogens. So once let us check out this diagram. So you can check out, this is the neck of the gland, contains mucous neck cells, and this is a gastric pit. This is the isthmus, which have stem cells, and this is the eosinophilic cells, that are parietal cells, and these are the adjunctive cells. This is the body of the gland. So adjunctive cells is present in a fundus, and also peptic cells are present in the fundus. So peptic cells are basophilic. So this is the structure of gastric pit along with the gland. So this is the gastric pit and this is the gastric gland. So adjunctive cells mainly have affinity for silver salts and the neuroendocrine cells, which secrete the gastrin. So now let us see the glands. So glands, as you know, stomach is divided according like cardiac end, fundus, body, pylorus. So according to name only, we are having different glands. Like cardiac glands are mainly gastric pit is shallow here, and the mucous neck cells are present. Coming to the pyloric glands, they are very deep, and the mucous neck cells are present along with the adjunctive cells, and the fundus of the gland of stomach mainly contains all cells. So the difference is mainly as in case of fundus of gland, that is fundus cells are mainly peptic cells and chief cells secrete peptinogens, but the fundus of the stomach in which all cells are present. So this is very important point. So small intestine will have villi having many crypts of lubricant, which are small intestinal glands. So if you check out this diagram on cells, that is, this is a villi, this is the apex, and here you can check the stem cells, which stem cells mainly form goblet cells and enterocytes. So enterocytes are also having microvilli along with them, and this is the base of the gland, this is a crypt of lubricant, and here you can check out, this is a Paneth cell. So the Paneth cells are migrating from the apex of the gland to the base of the gland. So from apex to the base, that is Paneth cell, and opposite is a stem cell, means stem cell migrates from the base of the gland to the apex of the gland, right? So apical eosinophilia is nothing but more lysosomal granules are present at the apex, then it is known as apical eosinophilia, and this mainly
phagocytic and function, and M cells are antigen presenting cells. That is important. Next, coming to the slides, I feel we have different slides. How to find out them, these features. By these features, we can differentiate them. So we can differentiate duodenum from ileum and jejunum by the features of GIT along with the villi. And Brunner's class is a special gland which is present in duodenum, which is mainly present in submucosa and more in the proximal area. So ileum we can differentiate from jejunum and duodenum by ileum have GIT-like features along with villi, pairs, patches. So pairs, patches is a differentiating feature, and jejunum easily we can differentiate because it's only having GIT-like features along with the villi. So next let us see in the liver important points. Hepatic lobule is in hexagonal shape, contains anastomotic cords of hepatocytes, and yeah, this is a hexagonal shape. These are the hepatocytes, they like this, and there are sinusoids in between, and they the blood from hepatic artery and portal vein reach into a central vein. So these are the sinusoids, and this is a portal triad. The portal triad mainly contains portal vein, portal artery, and a bile duct. So blood flow from the portal vein and hepatic artery go to the sinusoids. From sinusoids they keep going to central vein, from central vein to hepatic venules, from there into hepatic vein, and finally they reach the inferior vena cava, or known as IVC. So Kupffer cells, we know these are macrophagic cells which are present in a sinusoid, especially this is a mesodermal in origin, so mesodermal structure. And the stellate cells are present in the space of Deci and have lots and have I2 cells which mainly store vitamin A and also sometimes store the fat. So portal lobule, you can check out here, it's mainly triangular in shape which is connecting over 3 hepatocytes. In the middle it is having a portal triad. So central vein is in the corner. So all the central veins are corners, so they are forming a triangle-like structure, and the portal triad structure is in the center. It signifies the direction of the bile flow mainly. So like this the bile flows. And next the hepatic acines. It is diamond in shape. It is actually between two hepatic hepatocytes, and the area between the adjacent hepatocytes is supplied by portal vein and also hepatic artery. So it is mainly divided into 3 zones, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Zone 1 is highly vascular because from where, for example, this is one hepatocyte, this is one hepatocyte. So between these two, like this, a diamond structure is formed, then it is known as hepatic acines. So the zone 1 is nearer to the blood supply, so it's highly vascular, but zone 2 is low, and zone 3 is very low in vascular supply, so less vascular supply, so it is mainly prone to ischemic injuries because low blood supply, right? So this is all about revision of histology.